would you mind to stay here for another 2 hours? Because we are very late and we need to jump to the next stream immediately. Otherwise, we are not going to be on time, and this is very bad if we are not on time. So we already had to be through a break, a networking break. So, and other people are joining for this amazing stream that we have next. So obviously, we need to jump immediately, and then hope you can, if some of you want to go out for a coffee and stuff, please join us back, because this is the first part of the big cloud and the second part of the big cloud. So ladies and gentlemen, let me present you the big cloud stream, the first part of the technology streams of the Global Webit Congress. Thank you very much for being supported by our partners, Amazon Web Services and Zain. And thanks for our truly amazing speakers. Now, before you go, you should know that we have here the chief scientist of Salesforce, the founder of BitTorrent. Do you know what is the percentage of the global internet that goes through BitTorrent protocol? Do you know? Can you guess? Percentage? 10%? 20%? More? Less? More? It's more, yes. He will tell you how much of the global internet goes through BitTorrent protocol. And we have the founders of SwiftKey and many others. So hope you stick with us. Again, this is the first of the technology part of streams. This year we decided that the entrepreneurial stuff, the startup stuff is great. To be inspired, it's amazing. But let's cut this. Let's talk technology. And let's go through the things that really happen around us and how we can embrace them. So with these words, I will leave it to Nihai to present you our first speaker, JP.
Our first speaker is an economist and financial journalist, being ranked number 18 in the Wired 100, Wired magazine's list of the most influential digital power brokers. He was listed among the 50 most influential people in technology. The company he joined in 2010 is currently ranked as the most innovative company in America by Forbes magazine, as well as number 7 in Fortune magazine's 100 best companies to work for in 2014, and also listed in S&P 500 index. Blogger, speaker, venture partner, and chief scientist at Salesforce. Please welcome JP Rangaswami.
JP, very well welcome. Let us share our little secret. There is a little secret between us, right?
Yes.
You are one of the few people in the world that I'm trying to get on this stage for the past 6 years. It all started 6 years ago when we first launched Webit in Sofia. We sent you the first invitation back then. True. And then every year, I'm so honored to have you finally on stage. Thank you very much. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. If I had a pound or a lira or a cent or a dollar for every time someone told me that modern technology was destroying our lives, I would be so rich I wouldn't have to, to do any kind of work. If I tried to collect all the books that told me about all the damage that, social networks are doing, that the cloud's doing, that mobile is doing, again, I wouldn't have enough room to put it. So there's a big industry telling us how everything that we have that is modern is sort of really bad for us. And I've even seen a tweet from one of the Douglas Adams types which said that we tend to be comfortable with the technology that exists when we are born, and we consider the technology that emerges till the time we are 30 to be progressive, and anything after we are 30 is threatening our lives. But it's cheap and easy to be able to always think of technology as a threat. What I wanted to do was spend a little bit of time asking a different question. How about we consider the possibility that some of the technologies we have today are repairing the damage of some older technologies? And I'm looking at the damage of two technologies in particular. Text. You know, the idea of text has been around a long time, but it is, you know, that suddenly if you didn't know how to write, if you didn't know how to read, you were disenfranchised. And we started creating text diseases like dyslexia and all that, and then we invented things like whether it was the printing press or the typewriter much later and a QWERTY keyboard. It's taken us, you know, over 100 years to get rid of that keyboard, you know. So think about it. And the second question I want to ask is transport, okay? Until about 180 years ago, transport was something that was available only to either the people patronized by kings and queens or for crazy explorers or for people running away from crises. But text and transport, which have been fantastic technologies in their own right, cause some problems. And I want to look at those problems and see whether some of the modern technologies are helping us solve them. So a slightly different question to start this afternoon. Okay. You know, there was a time when we lived and died within a 10-mile radius of where we were born. For 25,000 years, human life, once we learned to be settlement man and not a hunter-gatherer, not mobile, not nomadic, we have spent the best part of 25,000 years evolving to live and die within 10 miles of where we were born. And then suddenly, in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, we began to afford migration. And instead of living and dying within that sort of very short space, because, you know, when you lived in villages and small towns, everybody knew everybody. Trust levels were high. You even knew who was the gossip, who was the snoop, right? You recognized the stranger automatically, right? It's not a question of you put everything on Facebook. You were Facebook. I mean, you were walking around in such a closed goldfish bowl, everybody knew everything. And we managed to live for many thousands of years with that kind of exposure, with that lack of privacy, with a level of community commitment, of trust in each other. If your barn burnt down, then the people in your community helped you rebuild it, housed you, fed you, looked after you. Your friend network were the people who lived right next to you, and you not just lived, your community died with you as well. So, you know, that's why I've been at conferences, as I said, in Calcutta when I was growing up, I could go to my local shop at the age of 6, ask for a packet of cigarettes, get given a packet of cigarettes. I didn't have to either give them money or even tell them what brand, because they knew it was for my father. They knew what brand he smoked. They knew where I lived, where my father lived, where my grandfather lived. This was normal. What changed? What changed was we had affordable migration. People suddenly could afford to move away from home at a price that wasn't the price of kings and queens and princes. So as we saw transportation start becoming affordable, we had a diaspora. Okay? Suddenly, everything that modern settlement man had learnt, ever since we began to settle, was turned on its head because we could migrate. And because we could migrate, we did migrate. And we migrated at speed over time. And the last 180 years, if you actually look at the maps of human migration as this affordability of transport came along, it changed everything. And we still carried some, you know, damage from the past in terms of text, which I'll come to. But I just want you to consider now that our lives used to be analog Facebook and Twitter, no need for telephones, lots of connections that were human, all done within a relatively enclosed space where everybody knew everybody. You know, if you wanted to avoid the gossip in the village talking about you, you had to know how to take the long route home so that, you know, you wouldn't be seen after you'd had one drink too many or whatever, okay? So there were people snooping at you at that time as well. but even that snooping was symmetric because you knew who was looking at you. Then today we live in a world of immense connections. Okay? Everybody and everything is connected. You know, just pick a number and you'll be told how many people are connected. And obviously it means, you know, everybody's got a second life, they don't have a first life. You know, even in this audience, people are looking at their machines, that's what they do. And it's the fault of modern technology, you know. It's the fault of modern technology that nobody can have a conversation anymore. Really? Modern technology? Well, every communications technology we've had before this has had that kind of effect, right? Not new. Our ability to immerse ourselves in some form of technology at that time, you know, before you had books, people said, well, when you know, now that books are invented, everyone's got their nose in a book, they're going to forget how to talk. Okay? We use phrases like, a picture is worth 1,000 words. What do? We write 2,000 words. Man used to live a multimedia life before we used the term multimedia, right? Man used to talk and you had memory. You used to be able to share stories across generations because you practiced the art of conversation with people. And we practiced that art of conversation and we drew pictures and we listened to songs and we learned all these things from memory because there was no text. There was no chance of persisting any of that except to hand over in memory from one person to another. Today, let me just check something very quickly. If you can remember 10 phone numbers, please put your hand up. No, sorry? No, 10 mobile phone numbers. Let me be precise. If you can remember 10 mobile phone numbers, put your hand up. Yeah, now remember, just think of yourself as asking this question 30 years ago. Okay? We are soon forgetting the art of remembering a small set of numbers because it doesn't matter. Now we have to do new stupid things like remembering 10 different 4-digit numbers in order to be able to do anything, or 20 different alphanumeric combinations. Life changes. When this life changes, our current way of solving this problem, because, you know, remind yourself what I started with, saying text caused its own complications, but has actually solved many, many things since. But it did cause complications like dyslexia. It disenfranchised people who didn't know how to read and write. It created an environment of experts, the publishers, the writers. It created the copyright kind of models we have sort of got. And before that, everybody used to just hand it over from person to person through memory. Okay? And we were multimedia because we had pictures, we had sound, we had touch. And guess what? Thousands of years later, where we are coming to with these devices, with technology, is an ability to live with being able to touch things and make them work, being able to say things and make it work, being able to have gestures and make things work. Okay? The idea of engaging with information with all your senses again is returning after being drowned in just text for a long time. What the cloud represents, what mobile represents, is our ability to connect in time and space that we had lost after we migrated. What social represents is the filter, because when everyone and everything is connected, you have noise. How do you extract signal? How do you know what matters in that signal? I'll tell you how. You find that out because it is now, for the first time in human history, since we learned to migrate, cheap to find out what your friends think. Okay? 200 years ago, if you want to find out what your friends think, you got out of your house and you talked to your friends, because all your friends were in your village or town. Zero cost. Then something crazy happened. All your friends left. So, until very recently, finding out what your friends thought. Imagine ringing everybody up 30 years ago on a landline. In India, first risk, will my landline work? Second risk, will my friend's landline work? Third risk, will that person be home at the same time as I'm making the call? So the cost of finding out what your friend thought was high. Today, the cost of finding out what your friends think is low again. And I use the word again because we are being reconnected again. We are able to talk to people who understand what we are, what we want to do, what we think again. We're able to have those friendships independent of time and space again. And as a result of being connected to people you know, as a result of being able to communicate with people who know who you are and who know where you come from, we are able to rebuild trust. So when people come to me and say, these technologies are eroding trust, the question I ask is, aha, so today we celebrate living in a big city and not knowing your neighbors. Not knowing your neighbors is something you celebrate. Good grief. Now, I remember what Mahatma Gandhi said when he was asked what he thought of Western civilization. And his answer was, I think it would be a good idea. Okay? Well, Western civilization might still be a good idea, but it does not begin with not knowing your neighbors. Man was born social. And our ability to relate to people whom we trust, whom we invest in relationships with, and to be able to engage with them. People buy from people, people sell to people, people work together in teams. No man is an island. And the technologies of today, the cloud, social, mobile, the things that lots of people spend all their time telling us about the evils, at least spend a little bit of your time thinking about how we are repairing the damage of the past, that we are creating empowered people now who can, even 30 years ago, if you were a traveling salesman, you couldn't be in touch with your family. Okay? So all traveling salesmen are evil? If the idea of being connected while you travel is something that should empower you, should make you feel good. Right? Now, my mother is able to connect with her grandchildren because of Facebook. Okay? That doesn't make Facebook evil. All technologies from nuclear onwards can be used in bad ways, but before we start criticizing everything to do with what the cloud, what mobile, what social do, understand that we used to live human lives of connections and trust. Trust is what makes the world go around. And rather than look at the ways you think trust is actually being broken, think about the ways we know more about each other, that the cost of finding out what your friends think has been sharply reduced, that the ability for you to be able to have shifting in place and time, asynchronous mobile access to your relationships, to the people you care about, whether at home or at work or everywhere in between. That's what this world is really creating. And so for the opening keynote of the cloud, I wanted to be able to remind you guys, this is not something new. This is a scaled-up renaissance of how we used to live till about 200 years ago. Thank you for your time.